you going? So down BKRsport. Today was meant to be our pre-season prediction video, but that's going to come out tomorrow. So definitely keep an eye on your inbox at 5 PM Queensland time tomorrow for the pre-season predictions, where I go through every single team and rank them from 1 through 17. But today, guys, we've got a team maker here where I'm going to be going through based off of the pre-season trials. Again, they are trials, guys, so a lot of people are treating it as if like the teams who do well in the trials and the teams who don't do well in trials is the be-all and end-all, end of the world, and God save our souls, right? That's kind of how people have now started to look at trials, which is quite strange to me, especially considering that trials a couple of years ago you would never be able to watch. You know, people would try to watch them and whatnot, but at the end of the day, you know, it wasn't a big time product that the NRL felt like people needed to see it on TV, right? So it was only a couple of years ago that KO even took it over, and it was only last year they made an official competition out of the pre-season challenge, right? So look, when we're doing this team maker here today, we're looking at the depth that we saw from the competition. We're looking at the young blokes that are coming through and overall how a club is looking from what we saw. Now, there were a couple of teams that did play quite strengthy looking squads, so that's why I have didn't really get to see it here on this team maker. But we're going to rock it through this here today, guys, and probably go for about 20-25 minutes. So hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here, and let's get into it. Alrighty, the Brisbane Broncos, they are the first ones off the chopping block, and they obviously played the Cowboys, and then they played Manly. We got to see, to be fair, we also got to see their depth when Wynnum took on the Broncos in the week before the preseason challenge as well, where the Broncos did win. Didn't look that great in that one, but that was a game where they were switching sides at halftime kind of deal, right? In the game against the Cowboys, they played a pretty strong lineup, so you're not going to really look at that game for the depth in regards to kind of their overall looking youngsters. But the game against Manly on Saturday was a really impressive one there for their Broncos youngsters. So I'm actually going to put the Broncos. They did also win the preseason challenge, but with that being said, the teams they were playing, also both Cowboys and Manly, put their absolute youngsters on the field for both those times. So for me, I'm going to be putting the Broncos into the decent category. It honestly could be 50-50 here. We didn't get to see them obviously go up against any kind of big dogs, right? We didn't get to see Manly or Cowboys put out a strong lineup there for them to really test themselves, unlike other teams where they had their youngsters playing against the big dogs and play pretty well against, right? So specifically the Cowboys, yeah? So the Broncos, I'll put into decent. I do think that they have quite a few youngsters coming up the system, and you'd definitely be happy with it if you're a Brisbane Broncos fan, especially when the preseason challenge. But again, there is context behind that. Alrighty, the Canterbury Bulldogs. This is a hard one, man. You did get to see a decent amount of their depth, but they did also play pretty strong lineups for the most part. You've got to remember, though, that in the second half is when teams start to take off their starters, and the final 30 is when you start to see the youngsters really coming through in the same game that the teams have played their full-strength lineup for the early part. Now, the Bulldogs in the first game, they kind of played pretty much everybody except for Viliami Kikau, Stephen Crichton, and Josh Adokar for the first 50 or so minutes. And in the final 30 minutes against the Storm there, they actually played really well. And that's what won the game. Their youngsters actually looked better than their starters in that game, right? For the final 30 minutes. And then we saw that game against the Sharkies where, again, for the first 50 minutes was their starting lineup, including those guys. And it didn't look great, but their youngsters were okay in that second 30. You know, the last 30 minutes to finish the game off, right? So for me, I will put them here. I don't think they're in needs improvement. I do think that there is some really nice guys there, like a Jarrell Skelton, who killed it in that first game and whatnot, Josh Papali'i and whatnot. I do think that it is, comparatively to everybody else, I do think that it is at an average kind of level. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing. But they do have some nice little youngsters coming up through the system. And you could make the argument that it goes here, to be completely honest with you. However, I will put them there. Comparatively to other teams. All right, let's go now into the North Queensland Cowboys. Obviously, they took on the Broncos, and then they took on the Canberra Raiders. The Canberra Raiders game, they played mostly full strength. Actually, they played full strength for the most part of the game, and then took off their players late. Whilst the game against the Broncos, they had a full development squad in there. Now, in the Broncos game, they played really, really well. In the Broncos game, they played really, really well. Gave themselves a good crack, especially for that first 50 minutes. And then, obviously, the quality took over in the end there from the Bronx. I am going to put the Cowboys depth there. I'm going to put them just underneath the Broncos because there were some quality players that really do know how to play. Good, solid game of footy. They came up against a really solid team in the Broncos, who were putting a full-strength team out there in that first 40 at the very least in that first trial game. And I'm pretty happy with the Cowboys youngsters coming through the system. I do really like it. Alrighty, the Dolphins. Now, we didn't really get to see a great deal of them because they were playing quite a strengthy lineup in both games. There was only, Hamiso and the Bromwich brothers who didn't really play in that first game for the Dolphins against the Titans, and they struggled to win that game. They were down 8-4 with like 30 minutes to go before the Titans took off their depth for more depth. You know what I'm saying? Like they went even further down the line, and then obviously the Dolphins took over there. And then the Dolphins obviously went and played the Warriors and really struggled, but overall, it just doesn't look like they have an amazing amount coming forward. I'm going to put them into needs improvement, and I think that does come from the fact that they are a new team. They're going to establish themselves. They've really got to work towards, improving the entire club right now. I know they have the Dolphins Q Cup team. I know that they are improving, but they still do need improvement. So I do think that this preseason challenge wasn't the best look for them, and they've just got to improve from here. So that's why I'll put them down into that category. The Dragons, another team who pretty much played strengthy lineups in both games. I wouldn't say that I'm excited. I wouldn't say I'm excited about kind of what I saw from the Dragons youngsters when they put a full-strength lineup out there against the Tigers. Obviously, they put them to the sword. But, that was the battle of two teams that are predicted to be last and second last, right? But that was at least an impressive showing from the Dragons in that second game against the Tigers. The first game, they got kind of whooped against the Rabbitohs, who worked with guys like Latrell Mitchell. They didn't have guys like Cody Walker. They didn't have all these kind of guys, Kemba Graham, Tyron Munro, a lot of them due to injury, and the Indigenous game for Latrell. But the Dragons did struggle, and I'm just saying that the guys that we have seen haven't really kind of lit the world on fire there for the Dragons. So I will put them into needs improvement. But again, didn't really greatly get to see a massive amount of the depth. But I kind of put what we saw right there. All right, the Parramatta of the Squeals. They played a full-strength team against the Titans in Week 2. In Week 1, they played a complete development squad and got pumped by the Raiders when people were expecting them to really put them to the sword. They thought that the Raiders would get done there, but the Eels, their development team, didn't look that fantastic. They've got some highlights in there like Blaze Talungi, but he also didn't play too well. And again, this list is based off of the preseason we've just watched. So for me, based off of that first game, and also in the second half of the Titans-Eels game, a lot of their depth really did struggle to the Titans' depth overall. So, because you've got to think of it this way, right? In that game, they won 26-16, but the Titans did miss 4 of their kicks. I know the Eels missed 2 of their kicks. I get that. But Titans missed 4 of their kicks. So it's still a one-score game in that one. And a lot of the development of the Titans did a lot better than the Eels in that second half, right? So I will be putting the Eels... I will put them above the Dragons, to be fair. I could even argue to put them here. But I will put them above the Dragons in needs improvement for the time being. Alrighty, Newcastle Knights. They played the Sharkies in Week 1. Gave them a good touch-up. The Knights did play a decent enough team, but also had a lot of youngsters throughout that game. A lot of youngsters throughout it. But then they went over to Fiji to take on the Melbourne Storm in Week 2 and didn't really kind of show a great deal. Had a pretty strengthy lineup there, but I kind of have to look more so at that Week 1 performance, realistically. You kind of have to, because that is more where the development players were. And I would say that the Knights youngsters are probably above the Bulldogs here, because again, the Sharkies played a full development squad in that game as well. Had less of a strong lineup in that game compared to the Knights. So I will say average. I will say above average, like above the Bulldogs there. But I do think that they're not at a great standing point with their youth right now. But they're definitely kind of still on the borderline there with the decent area as well. They're not too far off it there. No idea why New South Wales are here, and also no idea why Queensland are here. So we're definitely going to put them in, didn't really get to see it, because that's not what we're here for today. So we're just going to put them both in and didn't get to see it, but we're going to put Queensland higher, baby. Oh, yeah. Cry more. All right, next up here. Let's go to the Penrith of the Panthers. They're going to go straight into didn't get to see it. I will put them there above New South Wales, even though New South Wales basically is the Penrith Panthers. But the Penrith Panthers actually get the job done when they're playing in their competition. So I'll put them in, didn't really get to see it. They played in the World Club Challenge over there in Wigan, where they got robbed in that game, and played a full-strength lineup. So we didn't get to see anything from the Panthers this year, so we chucked them into the didn't really get to see it. Next one here is the Rabbitohs. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one, because the Rabbitohs did win the New South Wales Cup last year, and then also won the Queensland versus New South Wales Cup. Anybody was going to beat that Brisbane Tigers team, Burleigh would have given them more of a crack. But the Rabbitohs have looked awful in this pre-season with their youngsters, to be honest with you. I think that obviously they did well against the Dragons in the back end, but overall, that Rabbitohs team wasn't phenomenal, you know? It just wasn't. I guess you could still kind of utilise the guys like Tyrone Munro as a part of their depth. At the second game, who would they play again? Who did they play against in the second game there? The fact that I kind of think of it right now is a bit of a concern, because that means it didn't really light the world on fire. Oh, that's right, they played the Roosters and got beat 46-10. Yikes. Big yikes there. Yeah, they struggled in that game. I don't think I'm willing to put, based off of that game, down here. I also don't think I'm willing to put it here, but I will put them here. I could even argue here, based on the fact they still did win the New South Wales Cup last year. I know they struggled against the Roosters. I know they did. But I'm just throwing it out there. The Rabbitohs they do still have quality depth. But if you're basing it individually, solely on the preseason, you would probably be putting him via a massive score, like down into the needs improvement section. But I just don't think that that is kind of fair with the fact that they did win the New South Wales Cup last year and have a largely similar team. And they do still have some quality players. It just obviously wasn't their day, man. But all right, let's now go to the Canberra Raiders. And this one might kind of surprise you, to be completely honest with you. I'm actually going to put them into quality. I'm going to put the Raiders' depth into quality. I do think that they have some really nice youngsters coming through, in Ethan Strange specifically. This Raiders team went toe-to-toe with the Cowboys, with a full-strength Cowboys team, mind you. They went toe-to-toe with them, and they whooped the Eagles last week. So, for me, the guys that we saw in this Raiders team are actually quite exciting. And it's really strange to say that, because their main team is probably going to come in the bottom 4 this year. But the Raiders, in a development system, actually look like they're coming forward quite well. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a surprise. I guess if you're not a Raiders fan, you wouldn't have known this. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and I would be putting them into the quality depth category. Next up here, we go to Sydney Roosters, who they played the Manly Seagulls in week 1 and got a win, but that was with their full-strength team and did not look good in that game. But the second game, when they played the Rabbitohs, looked really, really solid. Do I think that the Roosters have better depth overall than the Rabbitohs right now? After one game, I've got to remember that, after one game, the Roosters did absolutely crush them. They did absolutely crush them. I do think I have to do it. I'm still probably happy with the Broncos, more so. I think the Broncos, I could even argue that this right now, the Broncos should go into the quality depth category, to be fair. Yeah, we will do that. We will do that. We're going to put the Broncos there below the Raiders in quality. So yeah, look, I think the Roosters were solid. It's one game to go off. Overall, people say the Roosters don't have juniors. I would more than likely agree with them on the most part, but this year, the youngsters did look good in development. So I will put them at the top there of decent. Next up, people go to Manly. This is a very contrasting one, because week 1, they looked fantastic in that game against the Roosters. The Manly put out a really, really weak depth squad and nearly beat them, to be completely honest with you. Had a really good game against the Chooks. And then the second week, they took on the Broncos, which was just their development squad, with not a single starting 17 player in that Broncos team. And same thing went for Manly, because they're both in Vegas, but they got beaten well. They got beaten quite well. The Broncos were just simply the better team. So I really don't know. I guess I'll put them based off of that into the decent category, but at the back end, just because it is very 50-50 kind of what we're thinking there. It's very, very 50-50 in regards to Manly played well this one, but didn't play well that one. There is guys like Jamie Humphries. There is, Gordon Chenkam-Tong and whatnot. But overall, decent. Yeah, that's as far as we will go there. All right, the Sharkies, they got done by the Knights in week 1. And then in week 2, the Sharks got... who'd they get pumped by? Who'd they get pumped by? They got pumped in this week, didn't they? No, sorry. No, they didn't get pumped, but they didn't look good. That was against the Doggies. And they won 12-6. And it wasn't really a development kind of team. The last 30 wasn't anything crazy, to be completely honest with you. And then in week 1, their youngsters did get a little bit of a, they're kind of looking like they're probably going to go into the average tier with the two two teams that they played, they beat the Bulldogs, they lost to the Knights. I would have to say you'd still have to... I'd have to say you'd probably put them above the Doggies here still. But I will not lie to you. You know what? I'm going to do this. I will not lie to you. I like the youngsters of the Dogs a little bit more than the youngsters of the Sharks right now. I do. Yeah, I do. I think that the Doggies do have something a little bit more exciting about their team coming forward than what I saw from the Sharkies across their 2 games. Despite the fact the Sharks beat the Dogs, it wasn't convincing. Both teams had strong lineups for the first 50, and then the last 30... was just they just threw guys on, and I don't know. I know the Sharkies won, but I would lean with the Doggies in that situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. In your opinion, in the comment section. Melbourne Storm. They played week 1 against the Dogs with a complete development squad against a pretty strong Doggies lineup, and were winning in the first half. They did pretty well for the first half, and then fell apart in the second half. And then in the second week, the Storm. Who did they play again? The Storm played the Knights, that's right, over there in Fiji, and won 28-10 with a pretty strengthy lineup, minus like Cameron Munster and whatnot. They had Jonah Pettit in there, who played pretty well. I'm going to say that the Storm youngsters are probably either quality depth or decent. Quality depth or decent. I will say... I'm going to put them in quality. I'm going to put them in quality. They do have a really good track record from the guys like in Brisbane, like Sunshine Coast Falcons, you know, when they were with North Devils and whatnot, East as well. The Storm do know how to pick a nice little young player up through their system and put them in, and I don't think the Storm really embarrassed themselves in this pre-season, man. I thought they actually were the team that had probably the happier fans post that Dogs and Storm game. Dogs fans, obviously, think they win the comp every single time they win a game, but you know, I do think that overall, if you look back at it, the Storm would be more happy with that. And the Storm played well over there in Fiji in pretty hard conditions with the humidity and whatnot. You know, Fiji is a very humid place to go to, so I'll put them into quality. Do like the youngsters coming through their ranks. West Tigers. Oof. Okay. West Tigers. Gee whiz. Where do we look to put them in? They've had pretty much their strengthy lineup in both those games, but we did get to see guys coming through. I'm not going to lie, I would put the Tigers down in the needs improvement section. They obviously got whooped by the Dragons, and in that first game, what was the first game again? It wasn't great. Oh, Warriors, wasn't it? It was Warriors. Yeah, they won 18-16, but like to provide context for that, the Tigers played a strong lineup, the Warriors played a complete development team, and the Tigers won 18-16, but the Warriors had a man off the field for 60 minutes, similar to the Titans-Warriors game from last year. The Warriors actually played like the Titans game in that one, well, the Titans did, and were well and truly in it the whole way, despite being down to man for 60 minutes, right? So I'm going to put the Tigers here after this preseason. I'm going to put them right at the bottom. It was not impressive. It was really, really concerning, and I will put them there. They absolutely need improvement. It wasn't a great preseason for them. Next up here, we're going to go to my Gold Coast Titans. Now, yesterday against the Eels, both teams obviously put full-strength line. Well, Titans didn't have Kieran Foran, they didn't have Brian Kelly, they didn't have Dave Fafita, they didn't have Jaden Campbell and the likes, right? But overall, the main team played for the first good bit. Kind of struggled through it. You know, it wasn't the greatest of performances there for the Gold Coast Titans, but the second half, the Titans youngsters actually played again better than that Eels youngsters in the second half there, right? The first half was a struggle, the second half was more of a 50-50 to 60-40 kind of battle, and again, if the Titans had got their kicks, it would have been a 2-point game, but if you give the Eels their kicks, then it's 30-24, so overall, I was pretty happy with it in development stance, because you go back to the Dolphins game, and the Titans were leading, you know, like 8-4 with 30 minutes to go of that game. So, and that was against a full-strength Dolphins team. And the Titans then took off their depth for further depth, and unfortunately, obviously, kind of threw it away there, but still only lost by 12 points in that game. I'm really happy with the Gold Coast depth right now. Like, I'm really happy with kind of how we're shaping up. I do think that yesterday, for the Gold Coast, although people might look at that game and say, oh, the Titans suck again, I just don't think, well, one, it's a trial, but also I don't think that the youngsters of this team disappointed themselves. I don't think so. I really think that the youngsters of this team have shown that they should be going into decent. So I am going to be putting them into, I'm going to be putting them, because you've got to remember as well, most of those youngsters obviously played for Burley in that Q Cup final as well. where do I go? Rabbitohs did get absolutely whooped, but I'm going to put them here. I'll put them there, and I could easily put them above the Roosters too, based on their first game, but again, that was mainly their first team. I'll put the Titans there. People are going to disagree with it just because they always look at the Titans logo and go, oh, it's the Titans. But like for me, as a Titans fan, very, very happy with how our youngsters are shaping up. Last team here, the New Zealand Warriors. Alrighty, they had a good game against the Tigers. Down to man for 60 minutes, like we said, and only lost the game by 2 points. There is definitely some depth there. There is definitely some quality there. The second game, they played the Dolphins with pretty much full-strength team, so you don't really get to look too deeply into that. But you go back to that first one, and overall, I was a lot more impressed with that team than I thought it was going to be going into this season. I feel like they're still a top 8 team for mine, and I feel like that comes from the fact that the depth does look like they've got a lot of grunt about them, and Andrew Webster is doing stuff pretty well from the bottom up, very similar to Desi Hasler to my Titans, right? So I would say that based off of that, I think, but they also played the Tigers. I want to throw that one out there. They also did play the Tigers. I'm just trying to figure out whether I would put them. I'm going to put them there. Warriors fans probably won't like that I put them below the Titans, but again, if this is my opinion. You can put it in the comment section all you like. But I'm still putting them in the top 6 there for depth at the moment. I do think that both the Titans and Warriors you can probably put on top of each other, to be completely honest with you. It's exciting times for both in regards to the guys coming through the system. And I'm pretty happy with this list. I'm pretty happy with it overall. I don't think that there is... well, every team is going to think they've got this is the thing, right? You always hear every single team say, hey, listen, we've got this massive youngster coming through. We've got all these great, players coming through the youth ranks. Every single team says that. And every single team is probably going to be like, oh, well, Tigers fans, Dolphins, Dragons, Eels will be like, oh, no way. I think the only one that could be controversial is the Eels. In regards to how low they are, and then I do think that there'll just be criticism about the Titans, but they didn't actually watch the Titans youngsters, or they have no idea what they're talking about. So, yeah, look, happy with this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new around here. Season predictions out tomorrow, baby. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.